My name is Austin Sayre and I'm 39.
My name is Brad Kirk and I am a senior citizen. That means 65.
David Broxterman. I'm 42 years old.
My name is Lisa Campbell and I am 51 years old. Can I lie and say 29?
I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I went to Indian Hill High School.
Well, I grew up in partly in Des Moines, Iowa, and then middle school and high school in Rockville, Illinois.
So grew up on the west side of Cincinnati.
So I'm from Chicago.
I was a little bit of a tomboy. I also was a little bit of a loner, so my favorite place to be was like up a tree with a book. Oh my god, that sounds so cliche. I really did like to climb to the top of a tree with a book and then sit up there and read. That was my favorite thing to do. I have a sister, so she's 3 years younger than me. We spent a lot of time together. I'm like part of the 13-year club. I played the cello. I did that, and then it actually wasn't until my senior year that I did my first play. Because I did my very first play when I was a senior in high school, and then all of a sudden, because I thought I wanted to go into music, I thought I wanted to play the cello. So because I made that decision to switch to acting kind of so late, I didn't audition for any programs. So I did my first year at UC. And so I think that year while I was at UC, I auditioned for a whole bunch of programs and I got into Emerson. I'd been in like, you know, all the fancy orchestras that Cincinnati had to offer, and I was like, I think I was pretty good. I mean, I was always like first chair and like given solos and things like that, and I really liked playing music, but the more I thought about it as a career, the more it felt like there was a lot of like practicing alone and like focusing alone on yourself and your scales and all that kind of stuff. And I can be a very like introverted person, and I felt like I liked working on things with other people. I don't know, like I kind of like got to a point where I was like, I don't know that I have what it takes to be that good at music. When you want to be like in music or you want to be an actor, there is no path. When I did my first play in high school, that was it for me. I really liked like digging into language and like looking at a play and looking at a script and trying to just like take the words on the page and see what that meant for actions. And I thought that was really exciting, and I think that's like the English part of me that like loves studying Shakespeare and why did they say thou and not whatever else. So all through college and all through my acting, as much as I was acting, I was always doing some sort of teaching, whether it was tutoring or being like a camp counselor or whatever. I always liked that as well. I don't think that people have one thing that they're good at and like one thing that they can do. I think there are lots of different options, and I think people are passionate about lots of different things. So the other thing for me was that like I wanted a family, and I didn't really want the family in LA. And so I started to think about, well, what else am I good at? What else might I want to do? And I did really enjoy English and teaching, and so I got my master's and switched. I started acting when I was at UC. I did like a whole bunch of like regional theater around Cincinnati, and that was really fun. I really liked that. And then when I went to Boston, Boston's a big theater town, so like lots of Shakespeare in the Park and that kind of stuff to audition for. So after that, it was kind of either Chicago, New York, or LA. And Chicago is the easiest place to get into if you're not in the union. So I moved to Chicago. Then the first thing I did in Chicago, because in Chicago you don't have to have an agent to get into an audition, I would print out like all the bus directions I needed for a day. And then I would just go from audition to audition, 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 audition. Sometimes I'd go to like 12 in a day, and then I'd just like wait for callbacks, right? And meanwhile, I was I did a whole bunch of random stuff in Chicago to make money. I went on an audition one day and I happened to have my cello with me, and the audition was for an independent film, and I got hired like while I was there, and then the next day I showed up on set, and it was a pretty big like independent film that was shooting in Chicago and London and Pakistan. I didn't know what I'd been hired for. Like, I didn't know what level it was, right? Is this like a student film? Is this an independent film? And I showed up, and I'm like talking to the guy who I'm acting with. I'm like, oh, like, do you act a lot? Like, you know, like how? He's like, yes, and giving me like super weird looks. And I was like, okay. And then like the makeup person is starting to put my makeup on. She's like, are you nervous? I was like, you know, like no more so than usual. And she was like, no, I mean, are you nervous to be acting with Sean? And I was like, who's Sean? She's like, no, that guy, he's the Tom Cruise of Pakistan. I was like, great. So like for the Pakistani film, I got paid $800. And that movie made more in Pakistan than Titanic. It's their highest grossing movie to date. So because I had done that film, I was like, oh, I think I really like film. I think I like film better than theater. So I moved to Los Angeles, and I spent a fair amount of time working as an extra. Finally, I got my union card. I got my union card on My Name is Earl. I try to play the cello sometimes. My kids are like, Mom, stop playing the cello. But so I play the cello occasionally. I garden. I like to run, and I like to write. So my goal is to never go to the grocery store again. I have 3 apple trees, and I have a couple rows of strawberries, and I've got asparagus, but this is the first year for the asparagus. So asparagus, you have to wait 3 years until you can harvest it, but every year it comes back like a little thicker. I have like a 3 sisters garden, so I have corn, which isn't up yet, corn and like beans and squash, and I've got a whole lot of tomatoes. So my husband got me a grow light for my birthday, I think, last year, the year before. And I got like kind of obsessed with starting everything from seeds because it's cheaper, and then you don't have to buy those like black plastic, you know, pots. We always have to do like our professional goals, and I think my like teaching goal is always how to make learning like authentic, right? So that it doesn't feel like I'm writing this paper just to write a paper, but like how can it be applicable and authentic? And I don't know, can we like go outside and garden and write about that? I don't know, but I keep thinking about that. Honestly, my goal next year is to have a slightly better work-life balance. It's hard to not take teaching home with you. So also trying to find a way to like have my kids at home be my kids, and like, you guys are my kids too, but have a little bit of separation. I think it's that you're like always caring for someone. So it's like hard to carve out times for yourself, right? At school, I'm trying to make sure that like everyone in the room is okay and everyone in the room has what they need. And then you go home and you're trying to make sure that like everyone at home has what they need. So it can be hard to figure out like where the priorities are. My husband's name is Clay. He's from North Carolina. We met in Los Angeles. He's a goofball. I can like tend towards like the more serious side. Like I get like focused and I like want to, but he is just fun. He's so much fun.
She's just so incredibly A, intelligent, and B, thoughtful and compassionate and like whole, like and well woven, like, you know, like the intelligence doesn't outstrip her compassion and that doesn't outpace that, and like you get this whole kind of like mishmash pastiche of like just like dopeness.
It's nice to, I don't know, if you get married, it's nice to be with somebody who's like a good partner. I feel very supported at home. He's a really good partner. My kids are awesome. We do a lot of, I don't know, like I would not say that we're like a super scheduled family. Like I don't want like an activity like at every turn, we do a lot of like hanging out in the hammock and like helping me garden and running around on the streets and drawing with chalk, and then we go to the library a lot because I like the library. But yeah, I'd say we just like have fun and we're kind of chill, and we eat a lot of popsicles. That's our house.
Spent a lot of time with friends and hanging out, and we didn't have APs or homework or anything, and we all had jobs after school, which is really cool. You wear your steel-toed shoes and go work in your factory or whatever, and so nice childhood, fun. My dad and mom were survivors of the whole, they're basically children of the Great Depression. My dad was a combat pilot in World War II. He's 100 years old, still alive. And my mom literally got on a train at the beginning of World War II and went to Denver to make bombs. So she was like a Rosie the Riveter. And so they had a big picture view of the world, and they just said, kids can take care of themselves, and gave me a lot of freedom. I was kind of a free-range chicken, kind of a hippie, other than working in jobs and stuff. I had a friend move in from town my sophomore year in high school. It was from England, who taught us how to play soccer. We didn't have soccer at our school. It wasn't even a club, so we played in the Mexican League, the Factory League, on the river. We skied in terrible places in southern Wisconsin, skiing and soccer and rock and roll. My high school band, I went to a giant high school, so we had dances all the time. We had live bands, and kind of our in-house band was a group that ended up becoming Cheap Trick. That's a pretty big band from the 70s and 80s, was our high school dance band. Look it up. Mommy told me, yes, she told me, I'd meet girls like you. I did go to Hope College in Holland, Michigan, a private Dutch Reform college, and I went there because I was I was at the time a born-again Christian. I was a young lifer that I forgot that I did in high school. Hope was great. It was a small enough school where I was captain of the soccer team and joined a fraternity. It was very social. Didn't know what to do. I didn't declare a major till senior year. Somehow squeezed out just a liberal arts major. And then I went right away to grad school to Northwestern Business School. Got an MBA in 1980, back before, I think we had color TV by then. Not sure. Was there color by then? And then finally hit the real world after that in St. Louis, Missouri, selling cat food. Meow, meow, meow. The hardest thing was I had to travel all the time, and I moved from St. Louis to Chicago to Los Angeles. I came to Cincinnati to be the head of marketing for Jergens, which is now Cow Corporation. Was bought, it's a Japanese-owned company, kind of the Procter & Gamble of East Asia. And I had to go to Tokyo a lot, and then I had to, so I was traveling a lot, but the nice thing about it was I did want to teach at one point. Was one of my career choices that I chickened out before I went into business, but I was training sales forces all the time. I was developing new products as a marketer and then rolling them out, trying to, here's the features, here's the benefits, here's what we need you to get, displays and ads and, shelf position and all that kind of stuff. So it did kind of get me toward education again, but other than the travel, it was great. I especially liked the work when I worked in Hollywood. I was a head of marketing for 20th Century Fox for a few years, and film was fun. And I traveled a lot, so that's kind of what got me into really being a history nut as well. I'd go to Australia, I'd read a book on Australia. I'd go to Japan, I'd read a book on Japan. So it was good. My kids were going to Indian Hill High School, and I'd been talking about being a teacher for a long time. They said, when are you going to, stop talking about this, Dad? So when I was 50, I said time for a second career and came into teaching. Yeah, I had to go back for 18 months to Xavier. I was interviewing for social studies, and I was hoping history. And I didn't teach Gov for 5 or 6 years now. I teach Gov and AP Gov, but I started with world history and then AP world history. My second year, I was lucky enough to get in the AP world pretty quick. But I've taught 5 of them, but history is my first love. But then I got 2 kids that now move back after college and work are in town. I see them quite a bit, and my wife and I still travels, quite a bit. She just retired, so we're going to start traveling like crazy in the summers. I met my wife in a bar, and it was love at first sight. I was 5.5, 6 years older than her, but she forgave that, and we've been married for 35 years. We waited a long time to have kids, probably too long, and then we had medical issues with it, and it turned out it wasn't, it was an easy fix, and so we, really wanted our kids, and they've been, we got 2 boys that are 18 months apart, call them Irish twins. My wife is half Irish, and we had to move them around 3 or 4 times. But their childhood, they were 6 and 8 when we got here. This is their home now, and they've kind of chosen Cincinnati. We're happy about that because I left home at 17 and never lived within 500 or 300 miles of my parents ever again. So we got, pretty close family. I thought once I graduated I wouldn't like it as much here, but it's, I really like teaching. I like the kids. I like the subject area. And I like my colleagues. One of the biggest things, business has some advantages, but the elbows are always out. You're always fighting for promotions, and it's very competitive. Here, I was shocked. The first day I got here, it's like, okay, I'm teaching this. Does anyone have any resources? And the teacher says, oh, here's my thumb drive of everything I've developed in 20 years. Thank you. So just the way they work together and share is really nice. Well, I think the benefit is just having 2 careers. I was in business for 30 years, but with 5 different companies, so there was newness there. But the truth is that there's aspects of it that are repetitious, and it was like I think switching careers that dramatically kind of added a couple years to my life of just everything, in terms of what you do every day is completely different. A lot of, there's common things about, the objectives and the work you got to do, but it was just nice to refresh. I know some teachers get burnt out just from the repetition of it. I won't. This is my 12th year. I still feel like I'm a little kid in a candy jar. It's like, oh, I don't know about that. Tell me more. And so it just feels fresh. I don't know if I would have started at 22, how I would have felt about teaching at 65. Basically, I feel like I work for the students. I work for your parents. I work for the community, and it's to be a part of the community. Been here for 20 years. It feels really integrated. Circle Walk is just, let's be social. You heard me yak at you. You've read. You walk by and you see a lot of people on their computer. I think of it as like, oh my gosh, we've got a bunch of guided study halls going on here. So I just want people to get up. And I also know just movement is good. And so I do it almost every day, almost every class. And kids seem to enjoy it. I learn a lot, and they'll say things to each other they won't say to the whole class or to me. One of the highlights this year was a new assignment that I had never thought of. I don't know why, where I asked students to teach their parents how to do the 16 gestures of social studies. And some of the kids just, mailed in their performance like they always will. Some really got into it. And just the idea of getting students, forcing them to talk to their parents or guardian is been a real high. And then seeing videos and showing it to the kids and seeing them laugh at each other and knowing each other's parents and stuff. I'm looking for stage 3. I just renewed my license. And, it's as long as it is as fun as it is right now, I'll probably stay teaching, because again, 10 weeks of retirement every year. I'm still not used to that. That 10 weeks is a real reason to keep going, and I'm not burned out at all. Eventually, I don't know, no clue. Don't know where, what, when, but we like it here.
I have 3 siblings, so I'm the third of 4. A little bit spread out, but close enough where, especially being third, I was able to be close with all my siblings. I did a lot of sports growing up, so a lot of playing outside. So we had a pretty vibrant neighborhood where there was a lot of kids around, and so you could go outside and there'd be kids your age. There's organized sports as well, so I did that too. For like soccer, I did soccer, so I did it in the fall, and then I did it in the spring. Wintertime, you do something else like basketball. Summertime, there wasn't much going on either. So it wasn't, you could do a lot more things, have a little bit more time. So I went to Xavier University. I was pretty undecided when I got there. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to kind of science route, business route. Math always came very easily to me. So I actually started going the finance route. And then I would say right before my senior year, I always had, motivation or interest in becoming a teacher, but I never really knew what I wanted to teach. That was always the holdback. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to teach math. I almost went into teaching math, and I found out that I learned it very quickly, but I couldn't teach it very well. The summer before my senior year in college, I took an EMT course and a firefighter course. And so I got my EMT certification and I got my Firefighter 1 certification. And there was actually a lot of science integrated into that curriculum, which that gave me like the light bulb of like, oh, I really want to teach science. So I was interested in the medical side. I was interested in the firefighter side, but I was really more interested in teaching and teaching the science rather than the other aspects of those professions. So the year before my senior year, I decided that I wanted to switch. And after talking with my parents, kind of made the decision that it would be really wise to finish my finance degree. That way, if I ever did go into teaching, I'm like, oh my gosh, this isn't for me. I had another plan. So I finished my finance at the same time I started getting my biology stuff. And then when my senior year ended, I started getting my master's in education and finishing up all the biology stuff as well. I think it was an extra probably maybe like 2 years or so full time going back to get master's with all the biology stuff full time. And I went through the summer as well. And so that was a little difficult because it was hard to, after 4 years of college, to go back on campus as like a fifth year senior and then one more year after that. That was hard because you felt like an outcast. And then that's when I met my wife too. I think it was a fifth year senior and she was a junior and we were taking a genetics course. And so we met in that class. And then I got to know her and asked her out on a date, and there you go. 3 weeks in, I knew she was the one. My wife is an OB/GYN at Christ Hospital. She's usually on call once a week, and then maybe like every 8th weekend she's on call. So we juggle that. So we have 4 kids. So oldest 2 are going to be 13 here in about like 2 weeks or so. It's middle of June, so they're 12 going on 13, boy-girl twins. And then Isaac is our 3rd, he's 10. And then Sarah is our 4th, and she's 7. My wife was pregnant with Sam and Naomi, who are the oldest 2. She delivered them the day before she was supposed to start residency. So she just had a 5-6 week break right before she started residency. We were one of the few people that had kids during residency, especially the early age. A lot of people had kids. They were maybe like 4th year residency, some in their 3rd, but not too many 1st or 2nd year. But we knew we wanted to have the possibility of having a bigger family, so we wanted to make sure that we started early enough so that if we did want 4 kids, which is what we have, that we wouldn't be too old. During residency, it was a lot more. I mean, she could work anywhere from like 80 to 100 hours a week. It was a lot. So I remember there were times where, so we had a nanny that would come in during the day, and it made it a lot easier because not getting the kids to daycare, letting them sleep in, especially before school, made it a lot easier. So I would say it was very hectic during that time. I was working full time, so I think it was my 2nd year teaching AP biology, which is a big transition. It's a big jump to just really know your curriculum very well, because it's the one thing to know it, it's another thing to teach it, and so it takes a little bit of understanding the curriculum and understanding students' perspectives and questions and elaborations, you don't know where those are going to come in. And so after a couple of years, you learn that perspective, and you can anticipate, and you can get more background knowledge of, okay, I need to understand this a lot better and be able to explain it and give them background details that I didn't think were going to be asked. And I still coached. I wanted to coach at least one more year, and I was coaching freshman soccer, the freshman soccer team. And so that was a lot too, because you're going, going till like 3 o'clock, and then from 3 o'clock to sometimes 8, 9 at night, depending on games. I could be home like at 8 o'clock at night and be gone all day. And my wife could have been the same way. So when they were little, I would never forget, like, my goal was not to sit down, because if I sat down, I would fall asleep. Like, that's how we were, and just trying to keep everything afloat. It was by far worth it. It's fun. It's funny that the memories I have are those memories. Like, you think about, like, oh, your memories are going to be like this funny moment. You remember the struggles, and it makes you happy that you were able to go through that. I mean, I think that's the difference too, is that, teaching is a profession where you have to be on. Like, you have to be on all the time. Like, you can have your good days and bad days, but again, like, you need to separate your personal stuff from the classroom, and that's something it's part of your career. It's part of something that you have to do. And then as they've gotten older, it's gotten a little easier here and there. And then my wife's hours have gotten better now that she was out of residency. So I don't feel like I have that much time for hobbies, but I will say that I always try to stay in shape. If I could do something all the time, I think I would lift weights. Like, it is just like, it relaxes me. I'm in my element. I can get a clear head. So I don't do that as much anymore. I definitely try to do a lot more cardio. So I like to exercise a lot. It makes me feel better, clears my head, makes me a lot more patient with not just with students, but with my own kids. I do a lot of running, not very serious, just to stay in shape. And if I can lift, I'll try to do that too. But when you have 4 kids and they all have one activity, that's 4 activities that you're running through. I'm involved in a lot of that. I coached them when they were little, and now that they're a little older, I don't coach them anymore. We have a garden that we started during COVID, so that was kind of nice. That was fun to start. So we do that. And then we love to travel. So anytime we can travel, it's, I guess, another thing that we really like to do. I would say the interaction with the students is what I enjoy the most. I think the biggest thing with talking with students is the ultimate goal I like to see is, what I like best about teaching is to have students realize that they're capable of more than they thought. So there's always this limitation that students have in their head, and getting them to realize that they can break through that limitation, that glass ceiling that everyone says. That is my goal, is trying to get kids to realize that they can be more than they thought they could. It's a long-term year goal, and like relationship and trust that is built, that people are not just told it, but actually believe it and have experienced going through like a hard curriculum and realizing how well they can do. That's going to be the ultimate like convincing part for a lot of students. Like, I'd say probably the hardest part is probably like maybe like the flexibility. So like my kids are at Sycamore, so they go to a different school. Usually their days off are a little bit different. Their breaks are a little bit different. And so like, if we want to take a trip, we're not big on pulling our kids out of school. We don't let them, take off for a trip. So finagling when I can be off and when they can be off, it just is a little bit restrictive. And it's just part of the job, and there's no way to fix it. There's no easy fix for that. So we just have to be creative about it. I think, putting a little bit more rigor back in the curriculum is something that I plan to do. And then increasing more interactions in the lab, which we're able to do some this year. I think even more so next year. being able to create more interactions there. So I think that's something that, you know, is a goal for me, is just to, you know, push that rigor a little bit more. As the past year, we've been a little bit more, I don't want to say hesitant, but a little bit more careful, because it's hard to see where everyone's, you know, how everyone is feeling.
What's your favorite part about having your dad as a teacher?
Oh, well, it's really helpful when he helps me with science homework and stuff. And, like, sometimes it's nice when I can get ahead of the game and advance further. So, thanks, Dad. I don't think there is a bad part. I mean, sometimes his work with his students and sometimes can be a little, like, every once in a while it can get overwhelming and I feel bad because sometimes it can get a little stressful and I feel bad for him because sometimes he works really hard and I feel bad when sometimes he has to miss out on things because he's working.
It works really well with my job because I have a really unpredictable schedule. So, at least once a week, I am in the hospital for 24 hours. And so it's great that he has a predictable, like, we know when he's going to be home kind of thing. And it's a really nice compliment because we both understand science and are interested in science, but we kind of have different realms. So that's kind of a nice balance. I don't think I'd want to be married to another physician because it would be too much of the same world, but we definitely have similar interests. So, and having him off in the summer, and I think that not a lot of kids get to spend as much time with their dads as my kids do, and I think that's a super special thing, and I'm glad that they have that opportunity. When he started teaching environmental biology, he said, hey, I think maybe we should try not eating meat because it's not so great for the environment. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And neither of us has touched a piece of meat since, and that was 3.5 years ago, right?
2.5.
2.5 years ago, yeah. So we complement each other super well.
My dad worked in the city and we lived in a suburb. I'm the youngest of 4 and went to grade school and high school outside of Chicago, and then I went to college at St. Mary's in Notre Dame. And since I was the youngest, when I graduated, my parents were moving to Florida, and my sister, who is just above me, came here. So I came here because I wasn't ready to go to Florida. So yeah, I was the youngest of 4, and I was a cheerleader, and I played grade school volleyball. That was how I got to coach volleyball. And in high school, I danced. I love to dance. I still love to dance. That's like one of my little secrets. And in college, I majored in math and computer science. So I never thought to be a teacher. I didn't think about being a teacher. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. There's always a thought about being a pediatrician. And, but I really kind of gravitated to more the math science. And when I was interviewing for jobs, and it was all just being in a cubicle, I was like, wow, I should have thought of that beforehand, because I'm just a people person. I wanted to be with people, and I was graduating, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I had been tutoring since 8th grade, and never really thought of that. I enjoyed it, and it was kind of natural for me, and I even tutored through college. And I was like, wow, I wonder if that's something that I could do with my math. And so when I moved here to be with my sister, I signed up at Xavier, and I went to the school to get my teacher's certificate, and I did my master's at the same time. It was a natural fit for me. So I feel like that's where I was called to do, I discerned about it, and that's where I met my husband. So it was the first, our orientation, but our first day in service. There you go, in service. I had to get gas in my car, and he was in this red pickup truck. And he got out and he said hi to me. And I thought he was cute. And I was like, oh, because I had been on such dud dates. And then he went back, and he had paid for his gas and went back, and he was like, have a good day. And I was like, oh. So he went away, and I and pulled into the parking lot of where my in-service was, and he got out of his truck. And I was like, there's the guy. He's a religion teacher. There you go. Wouldn't have known that. We started dating, and we kept it hush-hush. After like a year and a half, he went to go get his master's at UD, and that's when we got engaged, and that's when we said something, but we kept it pretty hush-hush. We got married, and we worked together for 10 years at the same school, and then we had our kiddos. I mean, when I had my first one, I thought my world went upside down. I was like, oh my gosh, like, your world is not you anymore, it's this. We have 5, and we had them in 7 years. I worked part-time, and so I was at Purcell, and they're on like a AB block schedule, so it was really nice because I worked every other day. And then I had Emma, and then after that, I switched schools, and I came here. They had part-time opening here, so I came here because I knew my husband was going to be working in a Catholic school for the rest of it because he teaches religion, and I'm like, wow, we're going to be having these kids. Moved to a public school, so I was very blessed and got my job here. I continued to work part-time, and then when Josh was 2, I came back full-time. I will say I think being a working parent and having young kids is challenging. I'm grateful. I mean, my husband is really, really good at like divvying things up. Like, it's not just one person does whatever. Yeah, sometimes I wonder how. I mean, it was those late nights, early mornings. I mean, it's definitely gotten better. But I worked throughout that whole time. It's different. The challenges are different. I mean, in terms of having them at your legs and like, mommy. No, that's, I mean, I have more independence now. Like I can go and work out after school if I want to, because the kids can take care of themselves, right? But in terms of time management, it's definitely gotten easier as they've gotten older. They can drive for the most part, most of them. Well, a lot of my free time is stuff with my kids. That's still a big one. But I've always liked to, I guess, keep physical, like run. I enjoy reading. I do. But it's funny, like in school, like I didn't like to read. But when it's what I want to read, that's, I love to do that. And just spend time with my kids, like doing stuff with them and traveling. I do. I love to travel. I haven't been able to like go like exotic places or anything like that. For me, I love the fact that I don't look at this as a job. Like when I come here and coming into the classroom, like it's natural. I don't have to think about it. And I love, like for me, this age group, hearing and learning from all of you, honestly, it keeps me young. I get the joy out of, honestly, those relationships, and then obviously the teaching and having them say, those moments of, wow, this is the first time I've ever understood that. And the challenging part for me, like I said, and I wouldn't say teaching in and of itself, but for being a working mom, that's challenging. Balancing everything is challenging for me. And as I'm getting older, like the changes and keeping up with everything, making sure that I keep up with, all the technology and all those. So, I mean, that's, it's not like you just do it and you keep doing, So finding the time to do that and balance everything and keeping up with everything. Find what it is that brings you joy and happiness. Like for me to be able to come here and not feel like this is work. Like I know this was meant to be. I wouldn't change it. Like I feel like this is where I was meant to be, and to follow that passion, because you're going to be working for a long, long time, and you can, impact others' lives in many things. So whatever it is you choose to do, and in terms of you can definitely balance the working and being a good parent at home as well. It's not easy, but definitely can be done.
Wait, I think.
So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, adios.
This just in on MTV Cribs.
What was